What do you get when you cross honey, applesauce, bananas, and cinnamon? When you mix bananas, applesauce, cinnamon, and honey in a blender and dehydrate it, you get fruit leather. Real yummy, tasty, and energy-filled fruit leather. People love the taste and smell of banana and apple, and cinnamon augments everything. So I've got, I don't know, maybe 3-4 bananas mushed up in the bottom here. Most of the jar of applesauce. It has cinnamon added to it, but that's not necessary, because we're going to add our own cinnamon. Here comes some honey. Notice that I'm doing a very careful job of measuring everything. Pretty much a jar of applesauce, several bananas, enough honey until it looks right. And the same with cinnamon. I don't know, what do you think? That's probably enough. So I'll mix this up and we'll put it on the dehydrator. See you in a minute. I've mixed all the ingredients, and if you can tell, it's kind of thick. It's not really runny at all, and that's the way I like it. I don't want it to be very runny. I want it to be as thick as possible. That means there's less moisture to dehydrate out of it. And I also like it to be nice and thick when I pour it onto the tray, because I want it to be thick when I'm done. I don't want it to be thin and brittle. I want it to be thick and leathery. Hence, of course, fruit leather. All right, so we'll get it ready and I'll show you how I put it on the dehydrator. You may remember from my video on the cranberry fruit leather that it's important to put a very thin coat of spray oil on the fruit leather trays. Don't try to make the fruit leather on the regular trays like this. There's great airflow, but nothing's going to hold the liquid in place. Put a real nice thin coating. Get it to reflect in the light so you can make sure that it's shiny everywhere, because everywhere it's shiny, that's where there's a little bit of oil, and that'll make it easy to come off. I go over it in a little bit more detail in the video on the cranberry fruit leather, so maybe check that out. All right. I'm going to pour this and try to fill the tray the best we can. It's coming out very thick. That's what I like. Now, it will take a long time to dehydrate. Over 12 hours, I would not at all be surprised. It's a lot of moisture. It's going to be pretty thick. All right. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of the trays, but I won't make you watch. That made about 3 trays full of fruit leather, apples, bananas, cinnamon, and honey. So I'm going to plug these in, and I'll check on it in the morning, and we'll see when it's ready. I'm expecting someplace around noon tomorrow. It's 9 p.m. now where I'm at, and 12 or more hours from now, I expect it to be done. And I'll show you how I check that out. My dehydrator likes me to have a minimum of 4 trays. Here's my 4 trays. I will eventually set this to 135 degrees because it is fruit. But for the first hour, I'm going to set it at 160. Just get it started, get a lot of that water warmed up, get it starting to evaporate out of there. And then in an hour, I'm going to turn it down. So, I'll let you know when this is ready. It's been about 12 hours since I turned on the dehydrator. Let's check it out and see how they're doing. Turn it golden brown, looks like a pumpkin flavor. And so I bend back the plastic. Use my fingernail. You washed your hands, didn't you? Bend back the plastic to separate it a little bit. Try to curl it up. Just curl up. Ah, but look. It's not coming up. It's leaving a lot behind. It feels pretty soft. It's squishy in there. It's peeling. It's separating. It's not ready. It's got maybe 4, maybe 6 more hours before I can peel it off. So I like to mention before in the cranberry fruit leather, I like to be able to peel it off, flip it over, not on the plastic tray, so that both sides get a chance to get fully dehydrated. You wouldn't have to, you could break it into little pieces, but for some reason I like to have mine in one big circle that I can cut up into 8 pieces, and that goes into plastic bags really easy. It's about the right size to eat for a snack. So about 6 hours from now, I'll come back, check it out, and let you know the status. I was able to peel this bit of fruit leather off of the plastic tray. The fruit leather mixture, or the fruit juice mixture, whatever you want to call it, that I was able to make up, took up about 2.5 trays, and this is a half tray. I was able to peel that off. Now if you look at this, see how it's light brown in here, and this is darker? You can't feel it and you can't smell it, but this is still damp and it's wet, a little sticky, and this is totally not. And that's what you want on the whole thing. Now in the full rows, you can see maybe it's lighter here. It's got different parts are darker. And so this is not ready to be flipped yet. And I've tried to peel it up and it just keeps sticking. So it's not ready to be flipped yet. So that's the status. Now this has been more than 12 hours. This is probably 13, 14 hours of dehydrating. It does smell good, and I gotta admit, I've cheated. It tastes good too. This has got to be my favorite trail snack, that apple sauce and banana trail or fruit leather, just yummy. I was able to peel it off of the plastic, the fruit leather tray, and flip it over. You can see where it's maybe a little dark here, and it was soft here. You can see where it kind of ripped, it kind of stuck to the plastic tray. That's fine. It doesn't change the flavor too much. The calories and nutrition stay about the same. This does need to stay on the dehydrator for a little bit longer and get a little drier. Probably another hour or 2 I'll leave it on there, and then I'll cut it up. The apple and banana fruit leather is all dried. I get out the plastic pizza cutter, and right on the counter, I cut them up. So I've got all these little pieces of fruit leather, 1/8 of the circle, and they're still flexible. So it is leather. Quite often, I'll put the fruit leather into quart freezer bags. Freezer bags are what's important. They're thicker. They'll withstand heat for boiling, and they'll also protect it from freezer burn at longer times in the freezer. You won't probably put boiling water in for the fruit leather, but I like to just have the same bags around, so it's always just the freezer bags. I will also vacuum seal them sometimes if I'm going to put them in the freezer for a longer time. So that's what I'm going to show you now is how I put them in a freezer bag or in a vacuum seal. So here's a vacuum sealer. 3 buttons on the top. Vacuum and seal, cancel, and seal. And seal just melts a seam. I take the plastic and I put it so it curls down into the vacuum sealer. If you put it the other way, it curls up and it's really hard to keep it under control. Curl side down and push it gently up against these 2 stops. Listen for the clicks. 1, 2. There's a latch on each side. I push the seal button only. And now it's just putting a melted line in there. It's done. Pop it open. Now this is going to be hard to see, I am sure, but it melted a seal right in there. I then estimate how much length I want. So probably out to about here. Just use regular old scissors to cut it across. You could use a hobby knife, whatever you want to do. And when I'm vacuum sealing, I'll usually put 4 pieces in. 4 pieces is what I would eat in a day. Probably not in one sitting, but in a day. Push it in again, just gently up against the stops. Listen again, 2 clicks. Now I hit the vacuum and seal. You see the air's being sucked out. Makes a different noise. Sealing now. So here's where I created the bottom of the bag with the first seal. I vacuum sealed it, and you can actually see the pattern of the fruit leather, and it's sealed again. This will usually hold the seal. What I do though, because I don't necessarily trust it, is I'll let it sit out for a day, and if the vacuum disappears, that is if the air seeps in, I know someplace that the seal was not good, and so then I'll reseal it again.